After weeks of diplomatic roadblocks and political tensions, an aid convoy traveling from the United Kingdom to Gaza has finally arrived in the Gaza Strip. It was a moment rich in symbolism as over 100 trucks rolled over the border in spite of Israel's two-year blockade. But the celebrations when the convoy arrived were marred by violence earlier in the day. Hamas loyalists and Egyptian troops clashed, leaving one Egyptian soldier dead and several Palestinians injured. Hundreds of Palestinians also threw stones at Egyptian guards across the border, injuring 9 of them. The violence highlights growing tension along the Egypt-Gaza border. Al Jazeera's Ayman Mahideen has the latest now from Gaza.
Well, for the third time in nearly a year, organizers of the Viva Palestina Convoy have successfully, albeit briefly, broken the Israeli siege on Gaza by bringing in a convoy of much-needed aid and supplies to the people here, and bringing with them also a message of solidarity. Now, all of this also comes amidst heightened tensions between Hamas officials here in Gaza and Egyptian officials across the border. For more on the day's developments, here's this report.
After a month-long journey, the multinational aid convoy to the people of Gaza arrived at its final destination. To a warm welcome, the Viva Palestina Convoy crossed into Gaza with more than just much-needed aid and supplies. International activists from more than 15 countries brought with them a message to Gaza and the world.
We're of course trying to bring humanitarian aid as much as we can carry, and it's the biggest convoy so far, so we're getting bigger. But of course it's a drop in the ocean. As long as this siege continues, no number of convoys is going to solve the problems here. You're based here, you know the suffering here, you know the shortages and hardships here. So we're not only trying to bring in aid, we're trying to show the world there's a siege.
Since departing the United Kingdom in early December, the convoy crisscrossed its way across Europe and the Middle East, facing political setbacks and even clashing with Egyptian authorities, who convoy organizers accused of trying to hamper their humanitarian efforts, an accusation Egyptian officials reject. But the convoy's joyous arrival followed a bitter day along Gaza's border with Egypt. An impromptu rally organized by Hamas to protest the convoy's delayed arrival turned violent, when Palestinians hurled rocks and climbed the barrier along the border. Palestinian security forces who tried to control the crowds were overwhelmed. Gunfire erupted across the border as security forces on both sides tried to prevent Palestinians from breaching the divide. In recent weeks, frustration and anger in Gaza was growing over Egyptian plans to construct an underground steel barrier designed to destroy tunnels used to bring in goods and supplies.
According to the eyewitnesses, it was a civilian rally, it was a peaceful rally, and the shoot started from the Egyptian side while one of Hamas leaders was addressing the rally.
Egypt, under increasing public pressure for not doing enough to alleviate the suffering of fellow Arabs and Muslims in Gaza, says its policies are aimed at merely defending its sovereignty and the integrity of its borders.
I don't think any state can accept leaving its borders exposed or unwatched. We used to have an agreement over the crossing points in 2005, and as a result of the Palestinian internal conflict, it was suspended. We have lived up to our historical responsibility and we cannot abandon it. However, our national security rises above any other consideration.
Organizers of the Viva Palestina Convoy will not only be bringing in a message of solidarity to the people of Gaza, but they plan on taking a message from the people of Gaza to the outside world. That message being that nearly 2.5 years into the Israeli-imposed siege on the people here, it is time for the international community to do more to put an end to their suffering. Ayman Mahideen, Al Jazeera, Gaza.
I spoke earlier with Abdullah Al-Ash'al from Cairo. He's a former assistant to the Egyptian Minister of Foreign Affairs. I spoke to him about Egypt's role in maintaining the siege on Gaza.
If the crossing is closed, then all the needs of the Gazans are blocked after finishing or destroying the pipelines. And now Egypt is building another steel wall, and this is also another obstacle in the way between Egypt and the Gazans. This had
it's hard to understand, though, for ordinary observers, why a humanitarian convoy wouldn't be allowed into Gaza and why Egypt would continue to keep the border sealed. Do you think it's a matter of national security, or is Egypt simply doing this at the behest of Washington or Tel Aviv, or perhaps even both?
Yes, I think so. Egypt is in fact responding to the requirements of Israel and the United States. I don't see any Egyptian interest at all in blocking all the efforts to feed Gaza. And even those people who are coming to break this lifeline, which is coming to Gaza, had been hindered many times. And they told many stories, and I think to my mind they are pure lies. So Egypt, in fact, is paying a very big price for Israel and the United States and is destroying its own interests.
We talk about Israel's siege on Gaza, but can we also talk about Egyptian complicity at the very least?
Yeah, I cannot say complicity, but I can say that Egypt is behaving in a way which is very much conforming with the requirements of Israel. So if Israel is aiming finally and ultimately to make some sort of genocide for the Gazans, or to break the will of Hamas, or to remove Hamas from Gaza, I think Egypt is helping in fulfilling this purpose. And this is very important to us as observers to see that this is not in favor of Egyptian interests.
Is there any doubt that Cairo and Tel Aviv are in fact coordinating their every move? After all, on the anniversary of the Israeli assault on Gaza, President Mubarak was hosting the Israeli Prime Minister. Perhaps quite a telling sign.
Yes, this was very much injuring the Egyptians and the Arab world, because while the criminals of Israel are now pursued everywhere, they are free and they are with dignity in Egypt, and they are received with big clamor, and they are welcome in Egypt. So Egypt, in fact, is contradicting itself. While Egypt is also calling for the non-impunity of the crimes which have been committed in Gaza, we see the Egyptian government's behavior is totally contradictory with this principle.
Well, it's clear the primary responsibility falls on Israel because it is still the occupying power. But do you also believe that Egypt itself is violating international humanitarian law by maintaining the blockade, particularly by maintaining it during that time of war? And the Geneva Convention is very clear on this point.
Absolutely. Egypt is violating many categories of international law principles. First of all, Egypt is committed to the Fourth Geneva Convention as a party to the convention, and as Egypt also is viewing all the violations of Israel without making any comment or even remedying or giving any remedy for these violations. At the same time, the blockade imposed by Israel on Gaza is very much completed by the Egyptian measures. So I can see Egypt, in fact, is violating international law, and especially the humanitarian international law and even the criminal international law.